Hello and welcome into another episode of Rolling with My Special Friends. Today we got a pretty awesome guy that I want you guys to be able to meet and listen to his story and understand some of the great things he's doing. He's really been enjoyed in a lot of great activities. I've seen some Taekwondo, been into some shooting clubs, been into some great activities with his church. But one of the things that intrigues me the most is he's got a saying, I can do it myself. So if that doesn't get you motivated at all to listen to this episode, nothing will. I want to listen in and find out how he can do it himself. Sawyer, how are you today?
Good.
Good.
Very good.
All right. Well, tell us one thing I'm sure everybody out there is listening and wants to know. We want to know about you. So tell us what spastic cerebral palsy. Did I say that right?
Palsy.
Yes, sir. Cerebral palsy.
Okay. Well, Sawyer, tell us what that is.
So I have when I walk with a little bit of a limp, and from my left side, from my left elbow down to my left knee, I'm a little bit paralyzed, but I'm still able to walk, and my left hand is a little curled, but besides that.
Basically, the spastic part just means that there's from my understanding, there's two types of cerebral palsy. One is where you're like, I just call it loose as a goose. And then the other one is where you're extremely tight. And that's the one where you see people there in a wheelchair and they're drawn up really, really tight. That's the one he has, but he takes on a fairly regular basis, he takes Botox injections, same stuff that some people take to relax wrinkles, but what it does is it relaxes his muscles so that he can actually he's not curled up. He can actually
walk around
and move. If he doesn't take the Botox, he's right back in a wheelchair.
Well, now that's pretty neat to understand that parts of it and how it gets those muscles to relax. I'm sure most people out there didn't know that there are special things out there to make stuff to be able to relax your muscles and him to be able to enjoy life. So tell us, now that we know what we're working with here and what you have to deal with every day, I know I talked about it when we opened this thing up about Taekwondo. Tell me how in the world you do Taekwondo.
I just do it with normal people. They have two different ones. They have ones I can work with the disability side or just work with normal people. And I choose to work with just normal people because I feel like myself that I don't want to look at myself as disabled. I want to look at myself as a normal person and keep pushing myself forward as what I need to do. And I'm a high brown belt, so I was able to do that fairly well.
Now that's amazing in itself. Tell me, and everybody listening now, I don't know my colors, so tell me what the belts are. I know there's a white or a black or a brown, so tell me how the order goes.
It goes from white all the way up to black. I don't know every single color off the top of my head, okay, but I know that it goes up from white all the way up to black. And I was right before black before I stopped.
Okay. Well, that's pretty great improvement in itself, though, for you to be able to take your limiting factors and be able to take yourself all the way to a brown belt. That's pretty cool in itself. Now, I also heard from hearing part of your story is that you're enjoying a shooting club. Can you tell us what do you do at that shooting club?
I'm really into shooting 22s. I love to 22 practice and shoot 22s. I love shooting 22s.
Now, okay, so since we know you're shooting guns and enjoy that, tell everybody listening, if there's somebody out there listening that has a child or somebody they know that has cerebral palsy, what is the limiting factors in shooting a gun? Do you hold one real well? Are you shaky with it?
I usually just shoot with one hand. You kind of have to hold it a little more tighter than when you have it with two hands. But I've been doing it all my life, so I'm used to it. So if you're born with cerebral palsy and you wonder if you can shoot a gun, you're fully capable of shooting a gun because I shoot one with one hand, and like I said, you have to hold it just a little bit tighter, but it's still just as easy as shooting with two hands.
he doesn't know any different. I mean, he's lived with it for so long. He don't know what it's like to not do it. The only thing, if I can jump in here real quick, but we they make some guns that they call the light versions. They're not steel, they're aluminum, and Ruger makes one specifically called the 2245 Light 22, and it's light as a feather, and it enables him to hold it up and hold it up longer than it would be if he used a all steel gun. And when we're hunting, of course, he uses like a Thompson Contender single shot pistol, and we had a brace made for him so that he can rest the gun in a brace. But when he's just out shooting and trying to shoot competition, he does it freehand, and it's honestly, it's just more trial and error, and he just doesn't quit. I mean, if something doesn't work, he and I both, we just sit down for a minute, scratch our heads, drink a coffee, and start all over again, and we just keep plugging away until we figure out what will work.
And I also want to put in here too that if you're also wondering, like, competitive, you can work competitive just as easy as a normal person. It wouldn't be, you can be just as good with one hand competitive as you can be with two. It may take you a little extra work, but you can do it.
Well, that's pretty neat to be able to hear that and understand, if I am someone out here listening, to know that it is possible that I could get into something like shooting, even just for fun. If I didn't want to do it competition, it sounds like with a little practice, they could do it.
It does. It goes a long way. You just got to have a positive attitude. He's got a positive attitude, and then too, his mother and I, we've encouraged him to just not necessarily do something that you can't do, but just keep plugging away. Don't get frustrated. Don't get upset. We've told him a million times, you can do pretty much anything that anybody else can do. You've just got to, and I know he can probably finish this sentence, you just got to do it. What?
You got to do it. You have to try to do it yourself. You can do it yourself, and I can do it. You just got to say, I can do it myself. And I mean, yes, you can, if you need help, use help. But I try to, if I can figure it out myself, I like to, because in the long run, your parents are not going to be there, and you're going to have to figure out some way to do it yourself.
That's the attitude I really like to hear some of these guys like Sawyer's great special story out there, and their great attitude that they have toward life to be able to push themselves. Now, one of the things I also heard when listening to some of your story and getting to know you, that you do homeschooling. So tell me, what is it like? Because I know you've done both. Tell me, what is it like to have to do all your work at home?
I honestly love it. I love it a lot more than going to public school, because you can kind of work at your own pace, and you don't have to. In public school, they want you to rush and get everything done at one time. And at home, you can kind of do it at your own pace. And if you're struggling at one part, you can take your own time. You can take a little more time and try to figure out how to do it and figure it out. I honestly love homeschool because I can, like I said, I can take more time and figure that one thing out. Than in public school, they just rush you and try to get everything done at one time when you can't. Sometimes it takes me a little longer to figure one thing out.
Not to mention, you can do it in your, and I like to tease him, you can do it in your pajamas, and you can sit and eat a snack while you're in school. You can put a bowl of grits and sausage on the table while you're doing your schoolwork. I tease him all the time. I tell him, I'm like, dude, there's no way you could ever go back to public school, because they don't allow you to go to school in your pajamas.
Well, that is some advantages to doing that. Now, I never thought about it, but I may enjoy doing that myself. I'm gonna go back to school just to sit in my pajamas. Tell us now. I also know from listening to you and getting to meet you several months back and understanding about you, one of your great places to go and you love being at is church. Tell us why you love being there.
Because you can just learn. You learn a lot at church. I mean, you get a lot of social interaction, but especially with being homeschooled, sometimes you don't get that. But with at church, you can get your social interaction. Plus, you can just learn more into your word. You can learn more into the Bible and into Jesus. And I love that because I love learning about Jesus and more of what I don't learn. I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything. And I love to learn.
Now that's pretty special. And in what you said, there's a lot to learn in that Bible. And it also, at least for me, when I'm reading, I learn something every day that I may have thought, I read something and thought one way one day, and the next day I read it, I kind of get a little deeper view of what's going on. It seems to be that the attitude you have of going and loving it is the same that everybody should have, that you really just get deeper into your walk with the Lord by being there, right?
Exactly.
Well, now tell us, we've been hearing a lot of these different things about you and kind of getting into things. I also know that you enjoy video games in your spare time. So tell us, some of the people out there listening, what's some of your favorite video games?
I love Fortnite a lot. Fortnite is my go-to there. And then
Okay.
also Call of Duty.
Call of Duty and Fortnite. Okay. What about in the video games? Is there something that presents you a challenge with cerebral palsy? Are there games that you don't like playing?
Certain controllers I have issues with, but I honestly, even if I have trouble, I will figure out a way. I always figure out a way.
That's another place where the Botox comes in too. When he doesn't take the Botox, he's just in a knot. When he takes the Botox, his hand will actually relax and open up so he can get more. He
I can do more.
Everything from his schoolwork to the controllers. He can actually do more things, and he can utilize that hand a lot. So that, again, we keep falling back on that Botox. That Botox is like a miracle drug, in my opinion.
And the thing about it is people, and another thing I want to put in is I've been getting Botox since I was what, 3?
Yeah, about
so 3. And to me, I've been doing it a long time, and some people will say, does it hurt? To me, I understand it's needles, but to me, it just doesn't hurt as much as it used to because I get it all the time. I get it at least once a year, and I'm used to it by now. So to me, it doesn't as hurt as bad as some people will say it is. Say it does hurt.
Well, that gives some people relief. I know a lot of people get a lot of shots with needles for other things, taking blood, things like that, and maybe over the course of time you get used to it, so it's just not as bad to have to deal with. Tell us now, I'm really wanting to know, because I heard something the other day that intrigued me about your story, is what do you want to be when you grow up?
A computer engineer.
And what makes you want to be a computer engineer? What's so exciting about it?
I mean, I've always wanted to work at Disney World, and they have this thing called an Imagineer, and they don't necessarily build the rides, but they design the rides, and they design the rides, and it's amazing. And I've always been intrigued by that because I've gone there a lot in my life, and ever since I've always wanted to be an Imagineer.
Well, now that's pretty neat. I think that if people are out there listening, especially the right people, listen to this video and give Sawyer a chance to be able to get out there and become that engineer. I know he's got the drive, and he's definitely got the smarts to be there. And how cool would it be to hook him up to be an engineer at Disney? Sawyer, this is one of the things I want to ask you as well. That really, I know that you're gonna be this type of person because I've heard you already are about how much you like helping out other people. If you could give one thing away, what would that be to help somebody out? And I mean, like, if you could give money to help somebody, if you could give food, if you could give them a car, a house, a whatever. If you could do one thing to help somebody, what would that be?
I've always loved giving back to my organization, the Cerebral Palsy organization, because I feel like there are people that are worse off than me, and I feel like money to that organization will help them figure out the cure or whatever they need to figure out. So I've always loved doing that.
Okay, so it's the Cerebral Palsy Foundation, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's anybody out there listening that would love to help out. That's where Sawyer's heart is at, and maybe we can do some things to be able to reach out to that organization and get them some more help, through him. Sawyer, tell us this one last thing before we let you go and talk to Dad a little bit. The quote we started this show with, talking all about you. I can do what's the rest of it? I can do it myself.
I can do it myself.
Okay, tell me what started that.
Well, I ever since I was little, my dad would always try to help me. He wouldn't necessarily he pushed me a little bit, but he was also always trying to help me. And I always knew that one day that he wouldn't be there and my mom wouldn't be there. So I knew I needed to do it myself, because I knew one day I was going to be on my own, and I would know that he wasn't always going to be there to help me. So I needed to learn somehow to do it myself, even if it was going to take me a little bit longer to do or take a little bit longer to figure out.
Right.
I knew that I needed to do it myself.
All right. Well, I understand that. Well, thank you for talking to us a little bit. Now, I'm going to talk to Dad. You don't have to run off or go anywhere, but I just want to ask Dad some questions and get the other side of this story, as we call it. We want to see from Dad's point of view what Dad knows and understands. So, Dad, tell us, in the medical side of things on this spastic cerebral palsy, what I know Sawyer described it to us earlier, but what are things that you see on a daily basis that seem to be limitations?
Some of the limitations are, I think the biggest limitation with him, he can pretty much do just about anything. He has to find a different way of doing it. But I think the biggest thing, and we run into this a lot when we're hunting, is he can walk, but he gives out. Even though he can walk, he just can't walk a long way. So when we go to Disney World, for instance, he's got a wheelchair that he will ride in, because you'll walk 13 or 14 miles a day. And so he'll have to use a wheelchair. When he can get up and walk, he'll walk, but he gives out. When we're hunting, if we're walking a long way, we've got a four-wheeler that he'll ride on. But when I mentioned Disney, that's one thing I think that he didn't mention is part of his wanting to work for Disney is he brings I guess you would say, a unique perspective to Disney. By him being disabled, we go a lot, and he'll see things, and he'll look at me and his mother, and he'll say, Disney, with a little bit of a tweak, they could make this a lot easier on a disabled person if they did this, or, they could make this a lot easier on a person in a wheelchair if they did this. And me and his mother will look at him and we'll say, well, what would you do? And he'll say, well, if I was going to design this is the way I would do it. So I think if he does get a job at Disney as an Imagineer, he can bring something to the table that that an able-bodied person just couldn't see or couldn't do. And I think that he could make it a lot easier on a lot of people with disabilities because he's there. I guess that old saying, you don't know what it's like till you walk a mile in their shoes. And with him, there's a lot of things. I mean, just anything from like when you go up to get a snack at a snack bar, the fact that when he's in a wheelchair, the fact that the counters might be too high and, he can't reach over them, or some of the things like the way the bathrooms are designed, or even some of the rides, people that are standing up, walking around, if you're not in a wheelchair, they don't see it quite that way. But with him being in a wheelchair, I think that he could make the experience 100% better.
Definitely.
For people that are in wheelchairs or that have disabilities, if he were to get a job there.
Well, I mean, and that's always what people out there are wanting, is a very unique, view to see things from a different light. Because sometimes we all get into that picture of how we see it, and it definitely, if we could look at it from a different way, it could make things easier on a lot of people. Tell us about Sawyer growing up. Now, when we're growing up with cerebral palsy, what does that present as a parent? Like what things did you have to learn, and what things maybe did he struggle with growing up?
Well, I mean, one thing is when he didn't he never crawled like the average person. He did kind of like an army crawl, and he first started off rolling. He rolled everywhere like a barrel. It was kind of fun to watch in a way, but then he started the army crawling, and he walked a little bit later than most people. And then again, I fall back on the Botox. But the Botox, when he started taking the Botox, it all of a sudden, instead of crawling or army crawling, he could actually get up and walk. But just the biggest thing is just things that a lot of people take for granted, just buttoning your pants when you need to go to the restroom. When you don't think about it, but when you actually do it with one hand, it presents a challenge. Or things like tying your shoes or buttoning up a shirt. There's so many challenges that he faces that we had to tackle. And you've got to walk a fine line as a parent, because you want to push them, but you don't want to push them so hard that they break. And then too, and I think a lot of parents with able-bodied kids run into this too. You want to go somewhere, you're in a hurry, you need to do things, and it's just so much easier just to scoop them up and carry them or do things for them. And I gotta say, with him, honestly, that was never a problem, because like he said, from the time he could talk, he would look up at you and he would tell you he's just got so much drive. It's just something that's in his spirit. He'd look up and he'd tell you, I can do it myself. Before he even knew really how to say it, he'd say, I can do it myself. I can do it myself. And sometimes you're in a hurry and you just like, dude, I can do it myself. So you have to step back and take your time, and like he said, let him do it himself, because and he said it perfectly. His mother and I are not always going to be there. He's going to have to do things himself. And that's one thing that we've told him is we love him. And we favor him. And the world can be cruel sometimes. I mean, they're not going to take the time with him or help him or do things for him. And honestly, I tell him a lot of times, he needs to try extra hard, because a lot of people, and that's one thing you asked earlier about him growing up. When they first told us he had cerebral palsy, we had no idea, or I had no idea. My wife's in the medical field, but I had no idea really. I seen, kids, most of the time you see kids with cerebral palsy are really, really bad off. I had no idea what cerebral palsy was. I didn't know if, I had just no idea. So we've had to learn what cerebral palsy is. And, and you take it on a day by day basis. When they told us, I wondered if he would walk. I wondered at the time if he would ever talk. I wondered if he would drive, if he would have a wife, if he would be able to have kids. And he's done all that so far and more. I mean, he's got his learner's permit. He's fixing to start driving school in about a week. So, and he'll be driving a car. He's got a little girlfriend that he loves, and she loves him to death. And it looks like if he keeps going like he's going, and I'm sure he will, hopefully one day he'll be married, and he'll have a career, and he'll have children, and he'll be able to do everything everybody else does, just a little bit differently.
Well, now that gives us a little bit of an idea, for people out there listening, that, what it's like growing up that way, and for you to be able to try to see that from a father's eye, to be able to encourage him a little bit and keep him going. because of what you said, because one day you're not going to be around, and you want him to have those life skills to be able to push himself and keep going. And it sounds like he does. It sounds like he's already got that in him, that he just won't stop until he figures out a way to do it. Tell the people out there listening now that we understand a little bit about his life. Tell us the other view. Tell us how, when you guys are out in the public, or especially he's out in the public doing things, how do other people treat him?
For the most part, they treat him very well. He's a unique individual. If you've been around, cerebral palsy, a lot of the kids, I would say 90% of them have it a lot worse than him. And he realizes that he is definitely blessed. The doctor told us that his case of cerebral palsy is he just falls into the low percentile, because it mentally, he's perfectly fine. In fact, he's 2 grades ahead. And he works so hard. We've actually had people look at us, and say, "Are you sure he's got cerebral palsy?" And he's not embarrassed. I mean, he's not ashamed. He's not embarrassed. I mean, hold your left arm up. You see, that's what his left arm looks like. And people will ask him. They'll say, "Do you have cerebral palsy?" And he has no issue. He'll hold that left arm up like this, and he'll say, "See here, absolutely, I deal with this every day. I know I've got cerebral palsy." So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just think I know that he tries so hard that I think it's a different situation. We've had some parents, and he's an inspiration, because we have some parents that tell us. Matter of fact, I had a guy on Facebook the other day that he told me, he said, "My son's young, and I love to hunt, and I was worried that, my son, whether he would be able to go or not, or be able to do things." And he said, "Seeing what Sawyer does has given me a lot of hope that if I do things the right way, and that if I continue to work, then my own son will be able to go hunting, and will be able to go fishing and do things." So I think a lot of times Sawyer is definitely an inspiration to other people.
I'm a really kind person, so it's kind of hard to be mean to me.
Yeah, he takes a lot. He doesn't.
I don't take so much that people will just walk all over me. I'm not the person that just will get mad at the drop of a hand.
He doesn't walk around with a chip on his shoulder at all. He absolutely does not. And that makes his life a lot easier too.
Well, let's switch gears here a little bit and tell me something. I'm going to call it a unique story. Tell me something that's funny about him. Tell me something that happened that, over his years here that's made you laugh or made somebody else laugh.
Here lately, one of the things, and he and I both started laughing, and we both started laughing so hard we couldn't hardly talk. But he knows that I love him, and I don't. I most certainly would never make fun of him. But we've always hunted in a ground blind, and when we go deer hunting, and we were in a situation to where a gentleman was letting us hunt on his property. And he had some feeders out, and he had some ladder stands set up. And that's just not something that Sawyer's ever done, because if you can imagine somebody trying to climb up a 15-foot ladder
with one hand,
because you have to kind of lean into it and grab, and lean into it and grab. So going up wasn't that big of an issue, but coming down, he started coming down, and I was right below him. So I was right there where if he fell, I could grab him. But still, not being able to see coming down, he would lock up. And where it took him 3 or 4 minutes to go up, I swear in 15 minutes, he was down maybe 1 or 2 rungs. And I started calling him a grandfather, a pawpaw. Well, when I said that, he started laughing, and he started laughing so hard he was crying. And when he started laughing, he couldn't move. Well, another 15 minutes went by, and I started laughing, and he just held on, and we both just sat there. We both started laughing. so hard that we were both crying, because what should have been a 5-minute ordeal wound up turning into 45 minutes, but because we were both laughing. And once I finally told him, I said, dude, look, it's getting dark. If we don't quit laughing and you don't concentrate on trying to get what you're doing down and come down out of this tree, I said, well, you just need to go back up there and I'll bring a blanket. You can spend the night and I'll bring you breakfast in the morning, because you're never going to get down. And he settled down and I settled down, and he came down. And then over the course of 2 or 3 days, we went back, and he finally got to where he could go up and down. But that's one thing he and I both have figured out. You can't take a disability too seriously. Sometimes you have to laugh, because if you didn't laugh, you would cry. You just have to laugh. You have to relax. You have to kind of have fun with it. And he knows, like I say, he knows that I love him. He knows that I'm not being mean. And you just can't take life too seriously. You have to just enjoy life and go along and work with it, and take life as it comes. If you take a disability like he's got too seriously, you're never going to get anything done, and you'll always be unhappy. You just have to, I kind of say, he's got to say, you just go with the flow. You just go with it. You just go and take life as it comes. And
you may have to slow down at times to be able to move forward, because it takes a little more time, but you're still able to do it.
Yeah, I've heard it said before, sometimes you got to slow down to speed up, and that makes a lot of sense to me, that you really want to push the brakes to find out what you need to do before you can go fast. So that
1 step back and 2 steps forward.
That being said, tell us some goals that Dad has for Sawyer. I know you've alluded to some things that you want to leave him with, that part of being able to take care of himself. But in Dad, and in dads out there listening all over the world, what does a dad want for his son with cerebral palsy?
I want him to be able to take care of himself. I don't ever want him to be in a and he doesn't, but I don't ever want him to start having a pity party. When he was growing up, in his entire life, it was never an issue. And when he was about 11 years old, he and I were in the pool swimming, and this is the only time he's ever had a problem. And he wanted to do something in the pool, and he couldn't. And he got frustrated, and he looked at me, and it's the only time in almost 17 years, but he broke down and he sobbed and he cried and he cried. He cried for 15 minutes until he was completely out of breath, and he looked at me. And sometimes I get emotional. I have to try not to, but he looked at me and he said, why did God let this happen to me? Why? Why me? Why did it have to happen to me? There are millions of people in the world. Why did I have to be the one? And I thought about it, and I guess God just kind of touched my heart and gave me a few of the right words to say. And I told him, I said, dude, I said, a lot of people that have disabilities, you can go one or two ways. You can get bitter. You can go through life with a chip on your shoulder, or you can deal with it and you can be an inspiration to other people. I said, you have got one of the most outgoing, and I know he's mine, but if you're ever around him, if anybody's ever around him, right quick, he's outgoing, he's friendly, he's polite, he's kind. He's a wonderful person. And I told him, I said, maybe God picked you to be an ambassador for disabled people, because you do have an outgoing personality. You make being disabled like it's not a problem. So maybe he took somebody with an outgoing personality and let them have a disability so that you can tell the whole entire world that it's not as bad as it could be and life is what you make it. So having said that, I guess I just want him to grow up and take care of himself. I want him to be first of all, I want him to be a good Christian. I want him to be a good husband to his wife. I don't ever want him to let his disability be a problem to where he puts too much work on his wife or he lets her do too much. I want him to always do as much as he possibly can. And I want him to be a good father to his children. And if he does that, if he just does the best that he can possibly do, as long as he gives it his all, and he's a good Christian, and we can meet each other again on the other side, that, there's not much more as a father that I can ask for. He's been a blessing since the day he was born. He's a blessing now. And, I don't know what to say. I love him. I'm proud of him.
And also I look at a disability like he was saying, but I look at a disability as I don't really have one in my eyes. I just try to, and what I do have, I push myself forward to figure, I've said this many times, but I push myself forward to figure out a way to do it differently. And I try to tell myself, look, I try to tell myself that I don't have a disability. If you tell yourself you don't have one, then you'll be able to figure out a way to do it. But if you look at yourself and you're like, I have a disability and I can't do this, you won't ever be able to do it. So you have to look at yourself and just tell yourself, just saying, I don't have one, and move forward.
It's a running joke around here too with him. I'm around him so much, and we push him to do so much, and he does so much that I'll tell him to do something or do this or grab this or carry that, or he'll be walking, with a grocery bag in one hand, and I'll tell him, look, dude, it's cold outside, open the door. And it's kind of a running joke with him. He'll turn around with his hand that's drawn up, and he'll look and he'll say, Dad, in case you forgot, I'm working with one hand over here. I got a grocery bag in one hand and I can't use this one. And he'll laugh about it. And I'll be like, look, dude, I'm sorry. Cause I actually get so caught up in what's going on, and he tries so hard that a lot of the times I actually do forget that he's working with one hand. So,
well, and that kind of comes through in both of you talking. It really sounds like that we got two best friends hanging out together, a dad that really loves his son. We got, Sawyer that's not willing to give up on anything and keep trying to the very end until he gets what he wants and figures that out. And that's what we've learned a lot today in this story of hearing between you two of the great love. I can just hear it through both sides of the story. So to wrap this whole thing up and give these viewers, our signature question that we call it, that goes with this podcast every day. When we read the book of the life of Sawyer, what, Dad, do you hope we read when somebody reads that book?
I hope that they read that, number one, he, again, in our faith is very important to us, that he was a good Christian, that he tried as hard as he possibly could, and everything that he did, that he never gave up, and that he was a good father, a good husband, and that he was an inspiration to others. I want people to know, and I hope and pray he lives a long life. But if something happened now, and I hope that it don't, but if it did, I can honestly say, and I know he's mine, and I favor him and I love him, but other people have said this to me. If something happened today, I think the world is a better place because he was here.
Well, that right there says everything. I mean, when we're going to read that book later on, it all of us could go at any time, and the Lord, as it says in the good book, as I call it, that all of our days are numbered. We can't add 1 minute to that story. It's already planned out, and that's what I think that we're getting right here, people. When we listen to this story, what an amazing inspiration Sawyer is, what amazing story he's got to be able to make that drive every day to all the way working up to trying to be this Imagineer at Disney. So I want to take the opportunity and just tell everybody, if you get a chance, look him up, check him out. Sawyer, are you on social media, Facebook, Instagram?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on both of them. You can look me up at, I think my Instagram is Salsa Bailey 12345, and my Instagram, my Instagram Salsa Bailey 12345, and my Facebook is just Sawyer Bailey.
And there's more than one Sawyer Bailey, so you have to. I don't know what pictures on there.
It's just a picture of me and my girlfriend, but you'll be able to see my face. So.
Well, everybody's got that information now. Check out Salsa Bailey at 12345 at his Instagram, Facebook. He's out there for you to meet and talk to and get to know as a friend. We're going to wrap this thing up and thank both of you guys for coming on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And we want to right quick just say the program that you have for the disabled kids up there, that was a huge blessing. I think he laughed and smiled more than I've ever seen him laugh or smile.
It was very fun. That entire weekend was one of the best weekends I've ever had. I've said this many times. Your program makes you feel that you have, like, I don't have a disability. You made it look like I was just a normal person, and everyone else was just treating me like.
They treated him like a king. I mean, you've got a wonderful program there, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for the fine comments, but it's also, as I know, there's a lot of people that goes into making that thing happen, a lot of volunteers, a lot of people that don't, get recognized. And I just got to say that I want to be the first one to recognize everybody out there that's willing to help, not just our programs, other programs that go on all across the country. As you guys talked about, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, I'm sure they got a ton of people out there that are doing the best they can to help raise money. So I applaud everybody out there that's doing great things in the volunteer world. So we're going to wrap this thing up, guys. Again, if you want to check out Rolling with My Special Friends, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and also check out the website. It's rollingwithmyspecialfriends.com. We have, as you see on my head, a hat to wear. We have t-shirts. We have water bottles. So just check us out for the next upcoming episodes and keep up with us. Again, thank you, Sawyer and Dad, for coming on and enjoying the day with us. And we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy talking to you.